Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another week of DEI Talk Live, and this is the extended edition. It is a pleasure for us to share with you every week on DEI Talk Live. Today, we are going to be speaking about inclusive mentoring programs. So stay tuned. We are going to share a lot of tips and resources. And I have here my expert co-host with me. I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves. So my name is Alison Johnson. I am an inclusion strategist, educator, and author, and I am very much passionate about sustainability and inclusion. And of course, I have a passion for humanity, and it is in my mandate to contribute to the success of persons as much as possible by advocating for sustainable programs for all. I'm going to hand over to April and then Francine to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is April Ogden. I am the CEO and founder of an organization called It's Your Outcome, where we bridge the gap between leaders and the diverse professionals that they serve. And we also specialize in disability inclusion. So I'll hand it on over to Francine.
Mhm. Hello, everyone. I'm Francine Baines. I'm a podcaster, social worker slash therapist. My podcast mainly focuses on mental health and all things mental health awareness. And in my professional life, I focus on employee assistance programs, wellness, and therapeutic interventions. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you so much, April and Francine. Okay, so April is going to start our discussion. And of course, she's going to give us an overview of inclusive mentoring programs. And she's going to present this from her experience as a disability inclusion specialist. And over to you, April.
All right. So I'm always excited to talk about disability inclusion. And today we're talking about inclusive mentoring programs. And so when we start talking about disability inclusion as it relates to inclusive mentoring programs, you may ask yourself, okay, what's the purpose? What's the difference? And so what I'm going to do first is share some statistics with you. So at the end of September 2024, September 30th, 2024, the unemployment rate for those without a disability was 3.7%. Now, I want you to think about that is 3.7% for those without a disability. Those with a disability, it was 7.2%. So that's an astonishing number. So we know something is going on when it comes to the unemployment rate for people with disabilities versus those without a disability. Now we're going to talk about the labor force participation rate. That is a percentage rate that looks at for those who are able to work between the ages of 18 and 65, how many people are working? So let's take a look. For those without a disability, the labor force participation rate is or was September 30th, 68.1%. So 68% of Americans who did not have a disability were working if they chose to do so. Now let's take a look at the number for those with a disability and their labor force participation rate. It is 24.5%. That is an astonishing number. So again, we know something is going on, but what do we do? A lot of times it's having access to employment. A lot of times it's learning how to navigate that whole maze of employment as a person with a disability. And there are several programs I'm going to talk about. I'm going to list these programs, but also I'm going to later on in the comments, I'll share some more information and to describe these programs. There are 5 disability inclusion mentoring programs, types of mentoring programs for people with disabilities. For the first one, we have peer mentoring. And then the next one is career development. Then we have group mentoring for people with disabilities. And then we have what we call online learning. And then we have disability specific. And like I said, I'm going to talk more about that in the comments. So definitely pay attention. What can you do if you are a person with a disability, or maybe you know a student who has a disability? I would highly recommend for those in the United States to visit your local federal vocational rehabilitation office. And this is where you can implement some of these programs, these peer mentoring programs, to help you navigate this whole maze of gaining employment. And so when we look at those numbers, we're definitely going to need some support to help people with disabilities. And these are the mentoring programs that will help you. Again, I'll share more in the comments. All right, Allison, over to you.
All right. And thank you so much, April, for sharing, with us. And of course, helping us, by highlighting the specific statistics and different mentorship programs that are available. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, so now I'm going to speak about inclusive mentorship from an educational perspective. And then, of course, Francine is going to speak about inclusive mentorship programs, how they can benefit your organization. And she'll just share briefly an experience that she has had with inclusive mentorship programs. All right. So, Francine and I have been in a similar program. However, I'm going to allow her to speak more about that. Okay. So I can speak about inclusive mentorship programs from an educational perspective, in that I recognize as a teacher how beneficial inclusive mentorship programs can be for students as well as for organizations. Okay. Because as a certified trainer as well, if I go into organizations, this is something that I encourage human resource managers or leadership to develop, as mentorship programs are important for a sustainable future for companies. Okay. So for companies who are thinking about sustainable programs, programs that are going to be long-term, programs that you expect to be effective and efficient in your organization, it's important for you to have mentorship programs. Okay. So there are programs available such as coaching programs in organization. However, mentorship programs are also present in organizations, and we're encouraging stakeholders to develop these mentorship programs to be more inclusive. So mentorship is not really a very new term, okay, because of course, maybe a lot of larger companies or medium-sized companies would have had mentorship programs, not some, okay? But however, these mentorship programs were not always inclusive, okay? So based on some of the information that April has shared, and based on our experience as expertise with Francine, having her experience as a clinical and corporate social worker, we have recognized that the programs that are in existence, they need to be more inclusive. Okay. Now we have research, so we have identified research, we have identified factual information to know that the programs that are present, they are not inclusive. All right. Because diversity, equity, and inclusion has just been started to become more effective in organizations, starting to get more recognition. So we know that the mentorship programs that have existed in the organizations, they need to be adjusted accordingly so that they can be more inclusive. And this is going to start with awareness of the importance of inclusive mentorship programs. Okay. So this is something that we want to encourage. And of course, Francine, April, and myself, we do share information on our page from time to time. We also host DEI Talk Live, so that's an audio event on Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, where we go into more details and share with professionals across the world who are in leadership positions and who are able to share tips with you, and as well as resources for inclusive mentorship programs. Some of the benefits of having inclusive mentorship programs in your organization, there will definitely be more productivity. You will have employers and employees who will be more loyal to your organization. And of course, your brand reputation will increase, in that it will become one that is positive and one that can be identified as authentic and inclusive. Okay, I will now hand over to Francine and she will share more.
All right, thank you, Addison. Yes, we did have a mentorship program together that was a group mentorship program, and it was focused on social entrepreneurship. So that was one way of doing a mentorship program. As we received classes, we learned how to create business plans and things like that. And it was also a competitive mentorship program because we were all competing for a grant. I believe it was, Alison. So that's
Yes.
one way of doing a mentorship program. And while we have to acknowledge that mentorship programs are good and necessary, there are some ethical considerations that we need to put in mind, because even though I've had good mentorship, I've also had bad mentorship programs where there were power dynamics involved and dual relationships. And these are things that we have to look out for when we talk about inclusive mentorship and mentorship in general. So one of the ethical dilemmas could be equality of access. It's important that mentorship opportunities are offered equitably to all employees, particularly underrepresented groups who may be overlooked. If you are going to have a mentorship program that does not include all employees within the organization, then we're running into some ethical red lines there. There's the bias and power dynamics that can happen and we have to look out for. So mentorship relationships may be influenced by unconscious biases or power imbalances, and particularly when mentors hold senior positions in the company. You have to be mindful of the potential biases, favoritisms, or conflicts of interest that could arise when you're creating these programs. As mentors, you should avoid imposing your own biases or career aspirations on your mentees. If you do so, then you're running into some ethical shady area there. There's confidentiality and privacy that you have to consider as well. Mentorship involves sharing personal, career, or sensitive information. So maintaining trust is critical. So both mentors and mentees must respect confidentiality. Violating this harms people's careers, reputations, and personal relationships. So you have to clearly define confidentiality expectations. There's boundaries that you have to consider in the mentor-mentee relationship. This can sometimes become too personal or cross professional boundaries. Now, as a social worker, you cannot have dual relationships. That may not be the case in some areas, professional areas, but if you're a therapist, you cannot have dual relationships with your clients. You cannot be your client's mentor per se, because there's a huge power dynamic that you can intentionally or unintentionally exploit the individual. Next, you have to consider conflict of interest, avoiding situations where the mentor's decisions about promotions, raises, or other career moves are directly affected by your mentorship relationship. So you have to assign mentors who are not in direct reporting line or have a vested interest in the mentee's performance. This ensures that it remains inclusive but without biases as well. You have to have accountability and transparency. So without these clear accountabilities, mentorship programs can become unstructured and fail to meet their objectives. The ethical consideration here is that both mentor and mentee should be accountable for the success of the relationship. This is a two-way street. Therefore, clear goals and progress measures must be there to ensure fairness. The last thing I want you to consider, and this list is not exhaustive by any means, is the cultural differences between mentors and mentees. Now, we're talking about inclusive programs, so we have to consider cultural sensitivity. This can create misunderstandings or discomfort. So for best practice, you provide cultural competency training to your mentors to ensure that they are prepared to engage with mentees from diverse cultural backgrounds in a respectful and understanding way. So these are just a few things that you should consider when establishing a mentorship program. All right, thank you, everyone.
Okay, and thank you so much, Francine, for sharing with us what is needed to implement a successful mentorship program. Now, for those who are listening, I'm sure that you all will appreciate what we have shared this afternoon on DEI, or this morning rather, on DEI Talk, the extended edition. We want to encourage you to comment, so make your comments, put your comments in the chat, and let us know how our talk is assisting you in making better decisions for your organizations. Please also stay tuned to the resources that April had mentioned that you will be sharing in the comment section. Once again, we thank you and invite you to share and invite someone to come to our Order Room event as well as our live event. See you next time on DEI Talk Live.